Welcome back, everybody, to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin. And today's act is Act 12, The Two Hitokiri. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we get to see our first semblance of Battosai, the manslayer. It's not just a name, it's a whole personality. Yeah, so that's kind of like the big revelation of this chapter, is that Kenshin Himura and Hitokiri Battosai, or Battosai the Manslayer, are not really the same person. And it's almost as if Kenshin has created this whole other person inside of him as what I like to think is maybe a coping mechanism for the horror that is the Bakumatsu, being such a young age in the war and being utilized as an assassin, that he probably had to separate himself, the gentle, kind Rurouni, or the gentle, kind person that he is, to be able to assassinate other people, human beings, for the sake of the revolution. And we'll get into that as the video continues, but it's just so fascinating to think of this other person that is the Hitokiri that is drawn out by Jin-e in this instance. But let's go ahead and do the chapter summary review, and we'll go from there. Kenshin arrives at the designated area chosen by Jin-e for the two men to have their duel. Kaoru notices a difference in Kenshin, particularly in the way that he speaks. The two men begin their duel, but Kenshin is still not up to Jin-e's standards, so he uses his Shin no Ippo on Kaoru's lungs. Jin-e gives Kaoru an estimated 2 to 3 minutes before suffocation. This summons the Hitokiri within Kenshin as he calls for the start of round 2 so he can kill Jin-e. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to point out is that there is an immediate difference from this chapter and all of the chapters that have come before them. It serves for a very particular reason, and really it's just to up the drama, up the tension. Whereas in last act, there was comedy used to dispel tension in order for the swooping conclusion of the chapter, as Jin-e swooshes in and kidnaps Kaoru. It was used for a very specific reason, to dispel the tension, only so that when it happens, we're ultimately shocked, as we were kind of already have forgotten Jin-e in that moment. And but here in this chapter, there is no comic relief. It is all very serious business between these two men. There's no moment of comic relief. And it's so interesting just to see these pages unfold, and there really isn't a moment to give way to anything. It just shows that we are in a very, very dire situation, and then Jin-e just ups the drama within an instance with using his Shin no Ippo on Kaoru, and using it in a way that he hasn't used before, all for the purpose of summoning the killer within Kenshin. I'm left a little puzzled as to how Jin-e knows that doing this to Kaoru, using rage to pull out the killer within Kenshin, how did he know that was gonna work? The only thing that I can really think of is that he's seen it be done with other people. He is somebody who kills for the sport of it, and it's implied here that he has kind of been a little bored lately, seeing as most of his targets are fat, lazy, greedy men who used to fight and no longer do, who sit comfortably in government jobs. And I'm almost a little disappointed that Kenshin fell for it, that he let himself be manipulated by Jin-e, because it just goes to show what it is. But at the same time, it works because it shows a flaw, or a chink in Kenshin's armor. I mean, Jin-e really is the truest villainous person that we've seen up until this point, that is giving Kenshin a hard time. Sanosuke gave Kenshin a hard time, but it was never really that serious of a threat. Sanosuke really wanted to take down Kenshin, but Kenshin knew that if he really tried, if he really pushed himself, he could bring Sanosuke down, but it wasn't about bringing Sanosuke down. It was about bringing Sanosuke into the light. Here, there is a man who's psychotic. He's an insane man who is killing for the sport. There is no rhyme or reason to get through to this man. And besides that, I mean, he's also a person who's rogue. He chose a side and then deflected to the other side and is really just up in the air where his loyalties lie. He's a man who serves himself above all, and as well as the sport of killing. I'm disappointed that Kenshin allowed himself to be manipulated, but I think it works in that it is a chink in Kenshin's armor, and we get to see a character flaw within him, that he thinks that he needs to resort to his killer instincts in order to save this person that he's fighting for. But with that, Kenshin as a Battosai, as I mentioned, is kind of a second personality to Kenshin. And I don't want to definitively say that it is a split personality. It's just Kenshin coping with it in such a way so that he won't succumb to the grief that comes with having to kill. Though I think it is important to note here that even if it seems like there might be a second personality with the Hitokiri, Kenshin as the Battosai does not kill in the same way that Jin-e does. Where Jin-e kills for the fun of it, or for the championship of it. He's hunting Kenshin, or he's fighting Kenshin purely for the glory of getting to say that he killed Himura the Battosai, the man of legend. Kenshin isn't like this. Kenshin is purely tapping into this killing instinct for the sake of saving somebody. As I feel, though, as I've already mentioned, there is no joy in him. He is calling for the start of round 2 because he sees that somebody is dying. They're suffocating. Their lungs are about to give out in 2-3 minutes because of this person. He's like, no. You don't get to talk anymore. We need to start fighting because this person's going to die if I let you continue talking. And I think that is just something. Especially in the panel where Jin-e thinks that he has this whole moment that he gets to monologue, and Kenshin within an instinct is he's disappeared, and the next thing that Jin-e notices is just his nose being crushed by the blade of Kenshin's sword, and it's just the start of round 2. In the beginning of the chapter, there's a moment where Kaoru realizes that Kenshin has approached the scene or the setting with a different demeanor. She notices an immediate difference in Kenshin when, in his speech pattern especially, where he says, we, instead of this one. And that is just purely the English translation. I tried to look up the Japanese version of this chapter. I wanted to see what it was that Kenshin says. I had been curious for a little while, but I didn't really feel like there was a need to look it up until this chapter, specifically because it is pointed out that he says this one. I want to know what it is that he says, and if anybody knows how I can find these chapters in Raw, please let me know, and I will go ahead and address it as soon as it is available for me to look it up, just because it is one of those things that gets lost in translation. It's kind of like with Naruto, who uses whose Datebayo is translated into believe it in English. And the reason that I had such a difficult time finding the chapter was because every time I would type in chapter 12 in Japanese, I was only getting chapter 12 from the Hokkaido arc, and that's all the new material that's being covered that is no longer even being translated in English. But to actually talk about that scene where Kenshin shows up and he's using we instead of this one, it's just to kind of show us that he means business, that he's not here to play around. He's not here to try and convince somebody with his way of thinking, or try to get somebody to come to his worldview, and because there's just no messing around here. There's a person's life who's literally at stake in this situation, and he can't. And using we instead of this one is just him trying desperately to tap into the Hitokiri, but not quite being there yet. Oh, and truly the last thing that I want to say about this chapter is I think that there might have been a missed opportunity for this act or this villain to be used as a way of igniting a possible revolution, or finding people that are sympathetic to Jin-e's cause of killing former Inshinshishi because they're dissatisfied with the current state of affairs in Meiji Japan. But instead, Watsuki chose to take it into more of a personal story between Kaoru, Kenshin, and Jin-e. I don't know. I just feel like maybe if they had gone in that other direction, it would be a little bit more in line with the theme of the revolution is not yet over. There are still plenty of injustices being done in Meiji Japan. I just feel that if they would gone in that direction, it just would continue with that theme. But it's all good, I guess. I think that really keeping it personal, it just serves more as a way to develop the relationship between Kaoru and Kenshin. If there was any doubt before this act, if Kenshin and Kaoru would ever be an item, or if there was any wonder if Kaoru loved Kenshin, it's completely solidified in this act. It really just serves to begin the character arc between Kenshin. And I'm okay with this. I'm okay with the direction that things went. I just think that it would have been interesting if there was a different scenario. But it is because Kenshin's character arc is being developed here. They've already gone through all of the other characters up until now. And so I guess giving us a way to see the chink in Kenshin's armor goes to, I guess, humble him, humanize him, which will be very important moving forward. And so that, ladies and gentlemen, is Act 12 of The Wandering Samurai Study, The Two Hitokiri. What did you guys think of this chapter? Let me know down below, and we'll continue to wander in the next one. Subscribe to the channel if you like this video, and give a thumbs up if you liked it. Bye, cha.